6, 7, 8. Holla boys and girls, it's the BGN. Coming from the Marvel world to the DC friends. All the way from Hollywood to the PCN. She defends everyone from sleazy men. Won't apologize for spitting Shonda rhymes. The space that we make is never colonized. We're talking games and movies and actors. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Yeah, better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Ha. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds.
Thanks for tuning in to episode 2 of House of the DragonsYall recap show. We just finished live tweeting and live threading with you this past episode, and we're really excited to dive into what we just saw. So happy to have Ryanne and Angelica back to talk and give us the breakdown of everything that we just witnessed using #DragonsYall, which absolutely love that everybody is on board and tweeting with us and threading with us and using that. So thank you guys for joining us every week on social media with that tag.
Yeah. DragonsYall.
Yep. DragonsYall. Go for it, Angelica. What did you want to talk about? Like everybody's reactions and all of
Yeah, let's actually go back to last week, right? Because we didn't have the opportunity to talk about the tweets from Blood and Cheese last episode. Love seeing the DragonsYall hashtag picking up. I was on Twitter. Jamie was doing her thing on Threads. We were killing it. Meme reactions galore. So I guess what were some of the favorite tweets that you guys saw from that episode?
Ooh, I don't have an answer for that because I wasn't on Twitter.
I'm sorry, Threads. Excuse me. I'm just on. Yeah, I'm the Twitter person. You're the Threads person. On Threads, what were your favorite?
Oh gosh, man! Now I got to go back on Threads and look back at what people were saying. But there is, because I am stealing his. I am stealing his post, but. And I'll just say the curse word, but someone had a meme of Sir Christian Cole, and the guy in the meme says, "You smell like a bitch." Christian Cole's face. And I had a post myself that went viral, and this was after we did the live thread about the Christian Cole hate posts. I was like, oh, I see a lot of Christian Cole hate posts in my timeline, and I'm here for the hate. I think that I'm paraphrasing what I posted, but it got like over 1,000 likes, and and actually it was a part of Threads trending page because he is like the most hated character on social media right now, Christian Cole. Like everybody does not like him. And as a matter of fact, this one person did say on Threads that if you like Christian Cole or if you are Team Green, block me right now. I'm like, wow, you guys are really serious about your feelings towards Christian Cole. So I kind of feel bad for Fabian Frankel because first of all, he was very lovely when I interviewed him, and he seems like he's a nice guy. And even there was someone else on social media that was like, I don't think he's going to get any roles after this. I'm like, you guys are...
It ain't that deep.
Yeah.
He's the worst.
For a trip. So, yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I think he'll get some roles. I think he'll be all right.
I think he'll be all right, but that little prophecy is kind of true that someone said he will be the most hated character this season. And look, we're only in episode 1 and it's already happening.
We hate his stinking guts. I think he is universally hated. I don't know anyone's like, yeah, I like him. Nobody. Excuse me, Ryan. I don't know if you were online during the Blood and Cheese premiere, but what did you see that you thought was funny, even if it was on Instagram? Like, what was like?
I did a little stuff on Threads, and a lot of people just were talking about how they weren't ready. Like, you can never be ready, even though you read the book, and you can just never be ready for like the impact the show's gonna have. So, and I saw like some comments about is this really like the full blood and cheese story that we wanted? Like some people were kind of negotiating back and forth on that. If that's what they, after reading the book, did they really give you all the details and stuff that you wanted? I remember, Angelica, you brought that out. Like you told us exactly what, some of the stuff that was in the book when they did the scene. So some people were kind of going back and forth. I noticed on like, is this really, adding to the storyline the way we want to? Did it do enough? Was it too quick? So it was just kind of interesting to see people go back and forth.
Yeah, I agree. I think book readers were expecting more of a gut punch because of how horrid it was in the book, but then when you see it on screen, it was still bad. But I think in our minds, we were imagining it way worse, and we're like, "Oh, that's it." Even though it's horrible, that's it.
Yeah, right.
One of my favorite reactions was the fact that there's a child murder on this show, but people were way more upset about the dog being kicked.
Like, people were way. That was how it was on. I was like, "What is wrong with you guys?"
They're like, "How dare you kick that innocent dog? Like a whole kid was killed or unalived,
beheaded on top of that. It's like the worst way to die, and then the dog is going to be all right at the end of the day." Right. Like. Yeah,
he was fine.
Weird.
Yeah. I will say I was live tweeting on Twitter, and I think the one that was the most popular was when, the Leonardo DiCaprio me when he's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. So I had tweeted about, me when I spotted the raven flying over Winterfell, because it was just so great to see like the Stark theme play and seeing Winterfell. We're all like, oh, the wall. So it was just, I think everybody just had that moment of like that feeling when they first saw the original series. So that was nice to see. But all right, we got all of our thoughts out from the last episode. Let's dive into this episode. And Jamie, you mentioned a lot that this season is about grief. Obviously, this episode follows the aftermath of Prince Jaehaerys' murder. And so there are many characters that are in mourning in one form or another. So, in the aftermath of Prince Jaehaerys' murder, members of the staff and of the royal court are pulled from their beds, because remember, this happened in the middle of the night, and they're rallied into the courtyard. Everyone's trying to root out the murderers or murderer, because they don't know if it's two people. There's chaos everywhere. The Kingsguard are pushing people down and knocking people over. And in his own chambers, King Aegon just destroyed his father's stone model of old Valyria. He's just screaming, and I'm like, not your daddy's Lego set. Why would you do that? But he's obviously upset. And I'm not supposed to laugh at this moment, but he said, "I declare war." And it just reminded me how childish Aegon is. It kind of reminded me of Michael Scott in Office saying, "I declare bankruptcy." So I wanted to take that scene seriously, but it just kind of made me giggle on the inside. Meanwhile, Aemon discovers that the killers actually came in through his room, through a secret passage, and he finds a single piece of Targaryen gold beneath the table, which I believe he thinks indicates a murder for hire. Then we see Otto, inform Alicent that the gates were shut. The villain was found, so they ended up finding blood. I'm sorry, the villain will be found. Excuse me, they hadn't found him yet, but he encourages not to be shaken by the murder. She's grieving the loss of her grandson, but he's gone, right? His pain is gone. He doesn't have to live in this cruel world. What she really is upset about is how this is going to affect her daughter, Helena. And then Otto reassures her once again that the killers are going to pay. And Alicent kind of has a moment of introspection. She blames herself. She thinks the gods are punishing her for her sins. Now, I don't know what her sins may be. It could be her guilt over sleeping with Kristen Cole. It could be her plotting against Rhaenyra and usurping her throne. I don't know, but she obviously feels this heavy guilt for what she's done. And he asked Alicent, Otto asked Alicent, what was your sin? And she ends up burying her head in her hands. Ooh, that's a tongue twister. And he tells her, they're going to mourn the loss of this young prince, but they're going to find some good for this tragedy. So once again, Otto finds an angle out of anything, even the death of his great grandson. So I'll stop there for your thoughts.
I mean, I thought as far as Aegon and his response, anger, it seems like was the normal response for him. And I just felt for him in that moment, because that episode 1 where we had that small little moment of joy from Aegon's face, seeing his son, that was just a very endearing moment. And that was a very rare thing to see of Aegon. So I felt really bad. By the way, they showed that episode on Father's Day. So shame on you, HBO. For showing that episode of Aegon's kid being beheaded on Father's Day. Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. And then someone brought up to me that there's been other episodes, like the Battle of the Bastards and the scene with Tyrion when he shoots his dad, that all of that happened on Father's Day. So I'm like, oh wow, I had no idea that this is like a trend with HBO. But anyway, but yeah, it was very, and I thought that was very heart-wrenching moment. Aegon's response. As far as Aemon goes, he was kind of like just, I don't know, it was just very convenient. I know that, that was his room where they were, but it was just kind of convenient that he happened to find a little clue that Blood and Cheese were there, I guess, or that there was someone there. I guess he doesn't know who it is specifically, but that there was someone there that was a money for hire responsible for what happened to Jaeherys. So that just seemed a little convenient to me, but I get it. We got to have some kind of plot device to move the story forward. And then as far as Otto's concerned, he's just so trash to me. He is so trash, because there's a moment where he's like, well, there is some good that will come out of this. And then Alicent has this look on her face like, dude, seriously?
Really, Dad?
Yeah, really, Dad? Like, this is again, I said this in the last episode. I just wish Otto could be a dad to Alicent. Like, just be a father figure. Don't try to politicize everything. Don't just think about, the benefits of a situation and how that can embolden you and enrich you and the family and your house. So him saying even some good can come out of this, I just felt like now's not the time to have that kind of conversation. So
yeah, very tone deaf. Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, this episode opening was just explosive. We already knew it was going to be. We knew Aegon, wasn't going to go for that. Like, it wasn't no way it was going to be a calm opening to the episode, and it just. The way it was just so intense. You see people walking down the stairs, the staff, the way they're getting pushed, the way they're moved. It's what we're here for. It all pulls you in, like, as soon as you open in. So I love that. It's tragic in itself, because you don't know. You're like, he's getting ready to lose it. It's like everybody named Mama get ready to end up dead right now, because you can tell. Rightfully so. He's a parent and he took his kids. So something's coming out of this. But just for them to open like that, I thought that scene was so powerful, just to not know what's going on. It just looked like chaos. And, you got the angry Aegon destroying things. I thought was just such an interesting to take us into. But, yeah, my guy Otto, yeah, he ain't the one. I already knew. I was like, opening up episode 1, he's going to keep, plotting and twisting this up. And, Alicent needs somebody to, like, balance her out and be there. And she keeps trying. She's like, come on, Dad, let me ask you this. Let me help. And he's just like, nah. He's after his own agenda. And I don't know. I just keep standing by the fact that I think if it really comes down to it, he won't be there to help her. Because that's just the kind of way he rolls. He's just not that dad. So, yeah, it was just tough kind of seeing her, like, still trying to plead with him. Like, maybe we can't have this relationship. But he's like, nah, keep that to yourself. I don't know.
Well, I can't help but think this wouldn't be the case if Rhaenyra was queen, right? Like, Rhaenyra would never put Alicent in these positions. And I just think it's ironic that she overthrew someone that could potentially have changed her life, right? And not put her in the corner. But I'm just like,
got baby in the corner. It's rough.
Yeah. You wanted this problem, now you got it. So we end up in the small council chambers, and going forward, I will be referring to them as the black and the green council, because there's actually 2 small councils on the show. So in the green council chambers, Aegon asked the whereabouts of the rest of the council members. Where were y'all at when these murderers threatened the king? And this actually was another kind of funny scene for me, because Tylan innocently asked, like, oh, were you threatened? And he was like, I could have been. And he just starts throwing things around. Like, you weren't threatened. Your son actually was. But he has a point. He lost his son. His son is his heir. His son is his legacy, right? How is his name going to be carried on if his child was murdered? And remember, on this show, there's only one son, right? In the book, Maelor still was alive, his second son, but there is no second son on the show. So Aegon essentially has lost everything. And then he goes to question Kristen on his whereabouts. And he says, I was abed, which infuriates Aegon even further. He's like, you were abed. You should have been protecting my family. So Otto tries to temper Aegon. He cautions him from making any accusations. Aegon ends up blaming Rhaenyra. He was just like, who else could it have been? He, once again, because he expresses his emotions through anger, he throws things around. And he points a finger at Alicent. He was like, you wanted to spare her life, and she's responsible for the death of my son. And all anyone can really do is just stay quiet. When someone's on a rant like them, you let them go until they blow off steam, and then they calm down. But during this entire exchange, our boy Larry slithers in and informs the council that a man was detained at the gates carrying the young prince's head in a sack. And the man is known to them as a member of the Gold Cloaks, who apparently was especially brutal. And then Aegon's like, I'll kill him myself. But Otto's like, let's just take our time with this. Let's try to get some information out of him to kind of figure out if he had any accomplices, who actually hired him. And Aegon's like sick of this protocol. He wants to get down to the business. So Lord Jasper Wilde advises him they may have more than one enemy. They may even have a serpent among them. And Aegon's like, oh yeah, it could be any one of y'all. So once again, they're turning against each other, and they're all supposed to be united. So Otto once again steps in. Is like, look, it's a good idea to identify who the real enemy is. But it honestly truly doesn't, like, we need to know within this council, but it honestly truly doesn't matter, because the realm is going to be told who the enemy is, and that is going to be Rhaenyra, right? We're going to pin her as the killer, because Aegon is already seen as weak, and he basically lists the reasons why. He had a hasty coronation. He usurped his sister's throne, who many thought was the rightful heir. And then there was that whole incident in the Dragon Pit when Melly's escaped with Rhaenys. So if Rhaenyra is named, her supporters will turn against her, and it will end up doubling the strength of the Greens. And Otto once again says this line that kind of pisses me off. He says, Jaeherys' death will help their cause more than 1,000 dragons. Which I was like, he's so insensitive. And then he ends up proposing a funeral honoring the young heir, so that the realm can see Rhaenyra's work. And, Aegon's like, no. And this is actually a part where I did acknowledge he is a good dad in his own way. He refuses to have his son's body dragged through the city as a spectacle. And Otto's like, no, we're going to honor him. And then Aegon looks to Alicent, and he's like, Mom, please. And she agrees with Otto, like, no, we should see, what the people think of Rhaenyra's actions, even though I know Alicent doesn't truly agree with this. And then Otto's like, yeah. And then you and Helena, y'all going to ride in the back of the wagon behind the body, just so they can express their grief and their tears, because they're the gentlest forms, right? They're females. And so Alicent is like, oh, that's where she draws the line, like, Dad, please don't make me do this. But ultimately, she does go along with what her father has to say. So I'll stop there for your thoughts.
Ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot of information. Yeah, that's a huge recap. going back to inside of the council, there was just a funny moment with Aegon when, you know, he's wondering if it was someone internally that's responsible for the death of Jaeherys, who's the serpent. Well, that was the line, right? Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that he went to the brother. Who was it? Orwell? Is that his name?
Jasper. Jasper Wild.
Is it Jasper Wild? Oh, okay. I thought it was Orwell. Well, anyway, Jasper Wild. I thought it was interesting that he goes to the brother when he looks over at him, because it was just like a quick glance at him, because he's like, "Was it you? Like, why you look at the brother?" So that was a very interesting moment.
Oh, Maester Orwell. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So there's Jasper Wild, who said the serpent line, and then there's Maester Orwell. Yeah.
He was black dude on the council. Yeah.
Yeah. He was just kind of chilling. He was just observing. But yes. Like, why the black
guy? When he was accusing, he was like, you know, and I forgot what he said, but he looked directly at Orwell, and I was like, well, why you gotta look at the brother like that? So anyway, I noticed things like that. So yeah, that was just the one scene that really stuck with me. And then yeah, Larry's, he's on top of it. There's theories out there about Larry's, because you know, folks have said that he may, like, where does he get his information? Where does he get his secrets? Like, we know that Mysaria, the White Worm, she has like her spies that helps give her information. We don't know how Larry's gets his information. Like, he's obviously managed to track down Blood with the poor Jaehaerys' head in the sack, but how did he find that out? So I think one of the theories is that he may be like a shapeshifter, or that he's not human.
I think that's, well,
I think went to the shapeshifter.
I don't like that. That's so
there's
left field.
Because I know you're really deep into the fandom, but have you heard about the theory? I don't know if it was a shapeshifter, or there's theories out there, or that he could also, like, he could shapeshift into a rat where he could see the goings on. So there's theory out there that he's a green seer.
He's a green seer. See, that would make a little bit more sense, but there's no Godswoods in King's Landing. There's zero. So he wouldn't be able to green see, because you have to green see by the trees.
Wasn't there Godswood in the scene with Alicent and Rhaenyra when they were younger?
In the books, it's not a real Godswood. It's one made up to look like one to honor them. So, but even if there was the one, it's just the one in the castle, right? And then where else would he spy?
Where they were reading the book and they were hanging out.
Yeah.
They were girlfriends. Yeah.
Yeah, when they were friends and wanted to eat cake. But
I think that was the moment that people clocked that he was possibly a green seer. I know we're getting off tangent now, but
yeah, we're going now. Jamie's the one ranting, not me this time around. We're going on a Jamie tangent. Okay, I'll look into it, but I think that is the TV show fan base going a little bit too far.
But it is interesting. We still don't know how he gets his information.
Well,
that we can all say for sure.
Yeah, well, I thought he was just blackmailing people so much. You know what I mean? Like, he knows. You get him to kind of do your dirty work for you, or so he thinks, and then he just holds it on you, right? So it's like after, that's why I said that I think the smartest thing that Alicent did was, start taking her own bath, get rid of the staff for a little bit, even though they're still there, because it's like the more dirt, like obviously he knows there's something going on with Cole, like the more dirt that he can pile up on her when she gets ready to make her moves or figure out how dirty he is or what he's doing. What his plan is, what is she gonna do? Like, he already knows, like, he has so many people everywhere in the castle, that's his staff that he brought in to pretend like they're helping her and assisting her, but it's like he got his claws like everywhere. So I think that's how he moves, like how he keeps the circuit going. Like, he knows everything that's going on. Like, he's in, Aegon's in, he's like, well, you know what, I heard this, da 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 da. you know, and you don't really question it because you know he's just kind of slinking around and he's there instead of being like, well, why you coming to me telling me this? Like, how do you know? You know, like nobody's questioning it. They just keep taking the information.
Yeah, I think, Jamie, when you interviewed Matthew, he said that Larry's has a habit of being the quietest in the room and kind of slinking in corners and really just observing. I think the phrase was the less you talk, the more you observe, something along those lines.
So is a lot of the non-speaking performance of your character, is that improvised or is that scripted?
I don't know. I based a lot of it on have you ever seen the show Couples Therapy?
I have not.
Well, it's an amazing show, and there's the clinical psychiatrist on that is Dr. Orna Grolnick, I think is her name, and her quality of listening is extraordinary. She's really like laser focused on her patients or clients, and just you get the sense that she's completely absorbing every aspect of the person, and picking up on everything. And I suppose she's sort of the definition of an active listener. And looking at the script, and like you say, his dialogue is quite sparse. And I think he even says when you're not invited to speak, you learn to observe, and how to make that active. And she was a real inspiration for that.
So I think he's good at skulking and walking in unannounced and hiding in corners. And I just personally think he has a spy network, just like any other, potential master of whisperers. But I appreciate the fan theories. That I'm sure that is a Reddit thread.
I feel like there's something a little bit more unique to Varys than the other spies that we've seen in the future of the Game of Thrones universe. So we'll see. We'll see how that all pans out. I'm not saying I'm buying into the theories, but he's a different bird.
He is. He is a different bird.
Yeah,
deliciously so. I always call him a delicious villain. So following that whole scene in the Green Council, Alicent now has to go to Helena, and I keep saying her name 14 different ways. Helena. I know it's Helena. No, it's Helena because it's Lena. I'm so sorry, Fia. I keep mispronouncing your character's name wrong. Alicent goes into Helena's room, and she's in a very disheveled state. Kind of reminded me of Daenerys in her last season after the death of Missandei. She just just gave me that image all over again. And she's grasping her son's cloak. And I did see this theory put out, not theory, but this thought put out there by fans. In the first episode, she was sewing when Aegon was looking for Jaeherys. Well, she was actually sewing her son's own, funeral cloak or funeral shroud. So she's grasping that, which I was like, oh, I didn't even catch that. And she tells her that so Alicent tells Helena there's going to be a funeral for Jaeherys, that they must ride behind the body. And she tells her mother, like, I don't want to. And Alicent's like, look, I don't want to either, but we have to share our grief with the people. And then she goes, I don't want to share my grief. I don't know them, but Alicent's like, it's your duty. And it looks like she tries to switch the subject and talk to Helena about what she saw in her bedroom when she was atop of Christian Cole. And Helena just kind of brushes her off and ends up just cutting her off and shoves the cloak into her mother's arms and say, this is for my boy. And then she picks up an elephant figurine belonging to her son as a tear rolls down her face. So I just want to pause there because I also saw a lot of people online that were not understanding how Helena processes emotions. They called her a bad mother because she gave up Jaeherys, and the fact that she was kind of blank, like her face was blank, and she just kind of went into flight instead of fighting for her son. So what are your thoughts on that? I thought that was actually very accurate for her character and how she's portrayed to be in the show, how she's kind of out of place and not like the rest of her family. So what were your thoughts on that theory that was put out there, that opinion?
So I want to read actually a post. I want to give credit to this user on Threads that gave a theory about Helena, Killary.B4NKZZZ. Great username. She says, how are y'all so sure that Helena didn't give them her son on purpose? She says earlier, what if he doesn't want to be king? What if she was able to foresee the destruction and the chaos that will ensue, not just for her and her son, but the realm as a whole? What if she didn't want to end up like her mother and she chose not to put her family in that predicament? I don't think she meant to trick Blood and Cheese. Her eyes rang the truth because that's what she desired all along. Just a thought.
I never thought that she tricked them. I think she always pointed because she told the truth. That's her son. I did also see other people comment about that, about her when she was sewing earlier, saying he doesn't want to be king. And I think she had also said they will take the boy. So I do think that's a great observation, that she doesn't want her son to suffer and she doesn't want to see her son turned into like her brother, for example. So I'm with that.
Yeah, I thought if she had to... Oh, go ahead, Jamie.
No, I mean, I think that's an interesting observation, but to me, I just think, wow, that's really dark to still choose your son to die because of, that's the path that you don't want him to go on. So, yeah, I mean, obviously she didn't have a choice in that matter, but I just thought that is a great theory, but I'm like, that's a really dark theory because it's like, it's kind of like when you think about it, she knew all along. And if she knew all along, then why didn't she do anything to prevent it? So
But that's to say that her theories, that her dreams are cohesive and that she understands exactly what's going to happen. I think she gets glimpses and pictures of things. I don't think she's like That's So Raven, where she can literally see what's about to happen. She gets pictures. So that's just my thoughts. But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
No, I mean, obviously the stuff doesn't come together for her all the way. Like he said, she gets like the bits and pieces she doesn't know. But see, that was my thing. My part of it last episode that I was pointing on was the fact that, okay, obviously her back is against the wall. She's not going to fight Blood and Cheese. I mean, she's not that fighter, right? Like, she's not that character you would put in that scenario and think she's going to fight these two guys. So she had to make a choice. But my thing was, I felt like I was similar to other people where I was caught in the middle, where it's like she doesn't have a choice, but at the same time, it was really easy. Like, it seemed like it was easy for her to just point. Yeah, like, it just seemed like it was easy for her to know which one she was going to go to, because obviously she had to make a choice. But it was just no, like, and like I said, even if she fought, maybe all of them got killed. I don't know. But it just seemed like there was no fight. And I'm not a mom, so take it how you're going to take it, everybody that's listening. But I just was thinking that there would be something else besides like, okay, cool, I already got my decision. She was looking and she was pointing and she was like, okay, go with that one. And she did make that comment earlier in the episode. I thought about that too. That kind of stuck with me, where I was just like, maybe she's going back now that she has to make this choice. And it's like, well, I know this is the one that Aegon is going after. Everybody can see there's something going through this, I'm going to call them the green line. There's something going through this side of the family that's just not quite right when it comes to ruling and being able to lead. So maybe she was thinking, okay, well, I need to cut this off at this point. They're not listening to me. I gave my warning, her way of that's is Helena? Are we going Helena? Or Helena?
I went with Helena because it's like Lena.
Whatever pronunciation.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, so Helena, she was giving a warning, nobody listened. So I thought maybe that was her cry there, where she was like, if they're not gonna listen to me, maybe this is the choice I gotta make. This is how the cards played out for me. I knew something was coming, so this is what I gotta do. And she kept that thought in her head, like, hey, this is who Aegon is taking to the council, and this is what's gonna happen eventually. So I mean, like I said, it's harsh. For a mom to be like, yo, I already got this idea in my head. This is what we're doing. But I just think her back was against the wall, and that's what she did. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with how everybody's torn online, because I didn't know how I was supposed to feel about it. I was like, she was just like, okay, that one. And, also Blood and Cheese, like the work. I mean, like the whole scene is just like, there's so many ways to take that, to take that discussion, even though Or you could just say, hey, it's in the books. We're doing it in the show. It is what it is, you know? So I just think it could be like two different ways that people take it. So I thought that discussion online was interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to know because obviously in the book is based off of accounts from third parties, and most of it is hearsay and rumors and gossip. So it's not reliable information. So now that this is adapted into a TV show, is this storyline canon? Is this the actual real story? You know, instead of the blood and cheese story that we know about in the book, which is an account of someone's version of what they thought happened, is what actually happened in the TV show what really happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like with the original TV series, you know, Jon Snow Resurrection, that's going to be canon, even though it's technically not in the book. So I think there are things that are confirmed because George is part of the series, right? And I'll say that for the Fire and Blood, the two main sources, or three main sources, I should say, are two maesters, so Maester Malos and Maester Runcitter, and then the other more salacious source is Mushroom. So I have seen where I'm like, oh, they went with Mushroom's account of this story and not, you know, Maester Malos. I think they do a good job of doing the salacious with the more less scandalous versions of events. But yeah, I did not realize we would have such a hot debate about Helaena. So let's move on to the next section. Oh my gosh, I cannot speak today. So, you know, now it is the funeral, right? We cut to the gates of the Red Keep opening as a royal procession rides through the city, displaying Jaehaerys' body. Alicent and Helaena are dressed in black. They have, you know, black veils shrouding their faces. A herald beats the drum and shouts to the masses, you know, look at the work of Rhaenyra Targaryen, pretender to the throne and defiler of the innocent. We see Jaehaerys' small body, and obviously they found his head and they stitched him back up. But I was stressed out this entire scene because I really thought that his head would come off his body. And so it's just a reminder of what happened to him. And if you go back to the opening credits, his death is documented in the embroidery in the opening theme of the show. So go back and watch that gruesome moment. You know, the crowds call out to Helaena. They're tossing yellow petals. I'm so tongue twisted today. Yellow petals into the air. And there's this beautiful shot of a teary-eyed Helaena as she looks up at the people throwing these petals down to her, and they kind of descend from the sky like rain. And as the procession continues, she sees mourners weeping, you know, in the streets for her child, and that makes her pretty uncomfortable. At one point, the wagon holding the prince's body gets stuck in like a pothole, and the escort, you know, attempts to like pull the wagon out to no avail, and then his small body can be seen jerking back and forth. And I was like, oh my gosh, just the moment that it's going to happen. But thankfully the scene cuts. But right before it cuts, the masses descend on Helaena, and they're expressing their grief, and they're grabbing her, and she's cowering in the corner because, you know, she's someone that obviously isn't around a bunch of people. She obviously doesn't fit in with her family. You think she's going to fit in with the small folks. So she's just really uncomfortable. And her mother is trying her hardest to like just keep her daughter from having a panic attack, you know, and she's trying to like, okay, stay strong, hold it together. She grabs her hand. But there's not much she can do. And then there's a shot of a particular man shouting, you know, curse on Rhaenyra the monstrous. So, you know, she's been being called all types of names. And so as the funeral procession is happening, there's intercut scenes of blood held in a black cell. Larys enters and begins to pull out his instruments of torture. Blood immediately starts singing. He spills all the tea. He admits that there was another person that was hired with him by Daemon Targaryen. Larys is like, okay, who's your accomplice? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know his name. Blood asks, you know, is Larys going to hurt him? Are you going to hurt me? And Larys is like, no, but I can't vouch for his grace. And in walks in Aegon. He stands before Blood with a club in hand, and Blood, for his part, readies himself, and Aegon just swings, and you kind of have this gruesome scene of someone's head basically being smashed to pieces. And, you know, I normally don't cheer, but I'm not mad at Aegon for swinging. So I'll stop there for your thoughts between the funeral procession and then, I guess, Aegon's revenge on Blood.
Yeah, I like the fact that you went back and said about the opening credits, because that's what I talked about in our first episode, is that, you know, for people that aren't familiar with Dance of the Dragons, they can always go back and look at the credits and be like, oh, I remember that from episode 1. So now you can look and see. I mean, it's such a terrible and tragic moment, but now you can remember what happened to Jaeherys by looking at the opening credits. So
and Luke,
prepared to see more of that. And Luke,
and you see Luke too.
I know. So much tragedy. And be prepared to see more of that as these episodes go along. So, you know, you got something to look forward to each week. Yeah, this was, I know.
Sorry.
Dance of Dragons is really depressing. It's just
get your box of tissue.
It is just sad. So it's like, I think I said this before, like, keep the Kleenex, keep the tissues nearby. It is about to, or if you're like an emotional eater like me, keep the ice cream nearby you. But the funeral procession, I was the same way, Angelica. I was like, I'm so worried about Jaeherys and like his head coming
his
off.
little head.
Yeah, because his head was kind of bobbing to the side. I was just like, oh no. But it was interesting that they chose like this open casket funeral so people could, and Otto said that. He was like, let them see the queen, the pretender, or the woman of the pretender, I think is who he referred to Rhaenyra as. So they can, you know, I guess really feel the disdain towards Rhaenyra for allegedly murdering this child, which, you know, obviously she didn't. So yeah, it was really sad to see that moment. And then as far as the moment between with Larry's, I just like the way he just comes in there and he's just so stoic and just like, you don't see any kind of emotion on his face. And yet blood just spills everything. He barely did any kind of
like, I'll tell you everything.
That's why I feel like I don't know. I feel like he's kind of not human. Like there's something about him where he just doesn't say much, but yet he's able to get information from people. He's able to coerce people into doing things without saying much or doing much convincing. So I don't know, but yeah. And then when Aegon comes in there, he just, you know, he does. And I'm with you. I was just like, well deserved. I wouldn't say I was cheering, but you know, justice was rightly served, and I'm glad it was Aegon, the one that served justice. So good on him that, you know, he did what he had to do to make sure that, you know, his son's life was at least justified in that way.
Yeah, agreed. Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, Otto's always playing politics. So he wasn't right for this. He was not right. But you know, he always thinking politically of how he gonna do this. You know, he's like, get him in the carriage, go this whole, you know, the open casket, do the whole procession. You know, but yeah, and it was just interesting to see Helena's like reaction to the crowd, like you mentioned. It was so just like, it was heartbreaking. It was also to see the way she's processing the grief, how she's dealing with it. You know, and another thing was, I think I remember the scene before that when you were talking about they were in the bedroom. I think that was the moment where she was asking her about like, why do we have to do certain things, or I don't know if I'm jumping ahead or not, if that was in that scene, but she was telling her like, okay, she was like, well, you just sometimes you gotta fake it, right? Like, this is what we gotta do. You gotta fake it. But I'm like, at the same time, that's something about Alicent we don't really like. You know, she just kind of, I feel like she just kind of takes a lot of stuff. She kind of swallows a lot of stuff. She's like, oh, well, I just got to do this, right? Like, I just got to do this. This is how it's going to be. I can't change it. And she's kind of pushing that off on Helena a little bit, because she was like, well, I'm a mom. I just lost my son. You want me to go and ride behind an open casket out in front of everybody? You don't have to deal with this. So I just thought that was an interesting moment you see her looking down at her hands in this photograph, like
Mhm.
she's just so uncomfortable. And for her to say like, oh, that, you know, that's just what we got to do. You know, that's just, you just got to keep faking it. You got to keep pushing through it. I feel like not through everything. I mean, we know it's all about politics, but it's like, is that the way you should have approached your daughter, you know, in this moment? So, and I think she kind of got that, you know, as you were saying, she was like squeezing her hand and there were these looks as they were going through the crowd. So I just thought it was just so interesting to pull out again, you know, because this is different than, you know, GOT in the way of like some of the battles aren't as much, but you get that family element and the drama of these families and how they interact with each other. And, you know, can you really call yourself a good parent? You got to politic this episode. So it's just interesting to see like, the way they had that combination going on. And like you said, that shot of her, that was just, it was a sad shot, but it was so
pretty.
beautiful. So beautiful. The way it captured her face and her eyes and everything in that shot. Yeah. It's just gorgeous the way they did that.
Yeah, I was like, wow, she looks gorgeous there, even though it's a horrible moment.
Yeah, it's so sad, but it's like at the same time, yeah.
Yeah. I also saw, I have a few neurodivergent friends who had commented and said that Helena actually reminds them a lot of themselves and how they process. And I've seen a lot of that in like the Facebook groups, which I thought brings up a good point. You know, she does not process things like the rest of her family. And I do think Allison is very aware of her daughter. And I think you, Jamie, and I, we had talked about this earlier, where when she's talking to Otto, trying, you know, ask him to be a father to her, and she says like, I'm not upset about Jaeherys, you know, what they've done for how it's going to affect my child, you know, my girl. She was talking about Helena because she understands that this may be too much for her. And obviously it's medieval times. They're not going to have the same support, right, to understand how her mind works. And so I feel like Helena is like such a tragic character, and I really feel for her. And she's literally the only green that I like. So it's hard. Yeah, it's really hard to see her go through this. And I'm just like, and there's more to come in this world. So all right, so let's move on. So we end up going back to Dragonstone, and we see Rhaenyra, who has just been informed of the death of, this is her nephew, right, by the Black Council. Maester Jaeherys, the Maester of Dragonstone, he's played by Phil Daniels, informs Rhaenyra it's unclear on how the Red Keep was breached, as he's explaining like the gory details surrounding this child's death. And he also tells Rhaenyra, you know, thousands of people witnessed this procession. And Rhaenyra's like, well, was I accused of this act? And unfortunately, they're like, yeah, you were. And so she's like, oh no, I would never do such a thing. Why would I ever inflict this pain on Helena of all people, an innocent, after I just lost my son? Like that wouldn't even cross my mind. So she's like, you know what, start sending messages out denying these allegations. But the master kind of tells her like, we can do it, but there's really no point, right? Like the damage is done. So Rhaenyra's kind of like, all right, let's re-strategize. She proposes her guard is doubled, right? Because apparently there's a murder on the loose, not just in Dragonstone, but in Driftmark. She also knows that there's going to be retribution if she's the one held responsible for this. And then Lord Bartimos Siltagar, Lord of Claw Isle, he's played by Nicholas Jones, assures Rhaenyra that that's already been done, right? We've already set you up. You're good. You're protected. Jace, you know, he proposes, he flies out on Vermax to watch the comings and goings at King's Landing, right? Just to make sure that they're in the clear. Since Rhaenys has been patrolling the Gullet. And Rhaenyra's like, no, young man, sit down, right? This is her heir. She doesn't want him to be out there loosey-goosey. Lord Bartimus once again mentions like the damage to their position is immeasurable. And she reiterated, like, I would never do this. And then Sir Alfred Broom, he's played by Jamie Kenna, suggests that maybe in her grief and her anger, she may have acted rashly. And Rhaenyra's like, are you insinuating that I would order the decapitation of a child? And she tells Sir Alfred to mind himself, you know, sit down. So she takes her seat at the head of the table, and she notices that Daemon is suspiciously quiet. So before I get into this this next section, which is basically Rhaenyra and Daemon having a very uncomfortable conversation. What were your thoughts on the Black Council's meeting and essentially some of her own members saying that she did do this or could have?
I just feel so bad for Ray right now. I mean, the birthright was stolen from her. She obviously has her reputation just like right now is trash. Her son was murdered. I mean, she's just dealing with it all at once. It's just the cards are crashing down. Her house of cards is just crashing down. And it's just like, where's the justice? Where's
Zero.
The justice? Yeah, for her. And it's just so sad because it's like she didn't ask for any of this. Like, this was something that was supposed to be handed to her, and only because she's a woman that this was all that the series of all of these different events have taken place, to be honest with you. So yeah, I feel really bad for Rhaenyra right now, because you know, once your reputation is shot, that is something that's really hard. That is really hard to build back up. And right now, everybody's infuriated, everybody's angry and incensed. So to build up that goodwill back, it's probably not going to happen. So yeah.
Gotta feel bad for the girl. Ryan, you have any thoughts on that scene?
Yeah, I mean, that's what Otto was hoping for. So I guess he got his wish right now. That's what he's hoping it was gonna do. But you know, I always got hope in my girl Rhaenyra because I feel like she's thinking, right? Like she won't say a lot when she's at the front of the council because obviously everybody that's the members, they're yelling and like, nah. We gotta fight, we gotta take action. Yes, she knows that. But you can tell she's thinking and she's trying to figure out, okay, I gotta protect my family. It's like we're in it now, right? Like it's going down. I need to make sure my family's good. You know, Daemon's over there doing his own. Like she can tell something ain't right. He's doing what he's doing. And so I just like how she's very calculated and she's thinking. I like how it's not always like, you know, she had her moment at the beginning because obviously, you know, Luke, RIP, like she had to, you know, she was like, I want Aemon. So she had her moment then. But now I feel like she's thinking about it. Like wherever she sits at the front of that table, she's like, okay, I hear all this chatter and noise, but y'all not going through what I'm going through. You know, y'all are not the queen like I am. So I need to be careful. I need to make certain moves. I need to think about this. So I like how she's, you know, giving us the opposite side of what's going on in the green where, you know, Aemon's like, burn it down now. Like I got a big dragon, burn it down. Like I don't know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? So it's just good to see like two opposite sides of that right now.
Yeah, she's definitely taking a more strategic, I wouldn't say light-handed approach, but she's really not trying to go to war. She just wants her throne.
Oh yeah, she's trying real hard, but I feel like they put her in that corner. But she's trying real hard.
Well, eventually the teeth do come out. But so speaking of teeth coming out,
and then I just want to bring up really quick that props to Emma DRC who only had one line during last week's episode. I did not realize that until it brought it up, and I was like, "Wow, they only had one line during the whole episode."
Yeah,
they're so good at their performance that I did not catch that there was only one line. So great on Emma.
All in their face because I thought the same thing. I was like, oh yeah, Rhaenyra only did say one line. I want Aemon Targaryen, and
I want Aemon Targaryen. That was the one line. Yes.
Props to Emma. So in private, Rhaenyra asked Daemon, is he responsible for Jaehaerys' death? So remember, he was real quiet in the Black Council. And Daemon said he only sent the Queen's justice after Aemon, and he gave very specific instructions to the assassin on Aemon's description, right? And Rhaenyra probes further. She's like, okay, but what instruction did you give to them if they could not find Aemon? And Daemon's like, you know, children were never the intended target. My bad. And she's like, wait a minute. You said that you wanted to spill Hightower blood and anyone would do. And Daemon's like, it wasn't me. I didn't do this. And Rhaenyra whispers, she doesn't believe him. And she's like, you wounded me. You weakened my claim to the throne. You weakened my ability to raise an army. Who's going to support me when they think of a child murderer? Even my own council questions my motives. She tells Daemon, I can't trust you. And honestly, I never truly trusted you completely, but now I know I definitely can't. She realizes he only cares about himself. And when she was a child, she saw it as a challenge, but she's older now and she's wiser. And Daemon's like, look, I've only ever served you. What are you talking about? And she says, I think you used me to restore your own claim to the throne. And that's when he starts throwing stuff. And I was like, wait a minute, he's not about to choke her this season. And he charges Rhaenyra. She steps back. And instead of him grabbing her neck, he kind of like caresses her cheek, but in a very menacing way. And, he says, when Sir Eric brought King Jaeherys' crown to Dragonstone, did he not place it on her brow? And she agrees. But then she says, but you had a war council when I was in labor behind my back. You're using my grief, not just the loss of her daughter, Visenya, the loss of her son, Luke, as an excuse to exact revenge on the Hightowers. This is not about my throne. And she asked him, do you accept her as queen? Or are you trying to grasp the thing that you lost? You desire the throne. And Daemon's like, your father only picked you to spite me. He was intimidated by me. And Rhaenyra says, no, he was never intimidated by you. He was afraid of you because he could not trust you. And Daemon says Viserys was a fool. He sought greatness, but he shrunk away from spilling blood. And he feels like Rhaenyra is on that same path. And Rhaenyra's like, you struck down a child. Like, I don't care what you said. You did this. And he tells her it was a mistake. And she steps back kind of heartbroken. And she says, it wasn't. And then he storms off. So I'll stop there for that marital bliss. Your thoughts on that scene?
Was it really a mistake, Daemon? Really? Was it? Really?
It was no mistake, sir.
It was absolutely. He's the worst liar, by the way. Like, come on. Rhaenyra can read right through you. Us watching you, we can see right through you. No, it wasn't a mistake at all. And for him to say that just is offensive. I think that one of the things that I observe about Daemon is that whenever he's in a situation where he's being confronted, he always either runs off, which is what he does in this scene, or he looks away whenever things get like really intense emotionally. So he really doesn't know how to confront or deal with his feelings or his emotions. And yeah, like, Daemon, you're gonna have to deal with that, bro. Like, you gotta, if you're gonna try to do this whole married thing, this whole relationship thing, you're gonna have to kind of communicate. But we remember how he treated oh gosh, I forgot her name already.
Rhea, his first wife, or Mysaria? Which one?
No, not Mysaria. The other one, the one that got killed by Vhagar or died by suicide.
Oh, Laena. Sorry, I was thinking of all his wives because Rhea was Laena. So many. Okay,
but yeah, we saw the way he treated Laena. Like, he just doesn't know how to deal with relationships and communicating with people. But yeah, the fact that he just decided to go with any child, any innocent, and that this was obviously for self-serving purposes, just not only backfired, but it's really hurting Rhaenyra more than it's helping their house. So he just made things way, way worse for the Targaryen family.
Agreed. Ryan, any thoughts on that lovely scene between the hub uncle? That's what they call him online. Hub uncle.
The hub uncle. Yeah, I guess it explains, because the first season, obviously we're like, okay, we're in this world of dragons and they gonna be married, they relatives and all that kind of stuff. Like, this is me, so it's weird. But I like how she brought up that line of, when I was younger, I saw what you were doing as a challenge. Like, I was with it. It was something she was trying to conquer, and she kind of, was roped in, pulled into that in his circle. And now she said, okay, well, you need to check that, similar to what Jamie's saying, check that at the door, because we got issues right now. Like, you trying to help me, you're supposed to be helping me rule, And look, you not the king right now. So I need you to back me up. I need you to help me. I need you to ride with me. You can do that or not. And he's like, when he's on the borderline of hitting her, he's like, okay, because I thought so too. I got a little hype too. I got on the edge of my seat too, because I'm like, now what's he getting ready to do right now? Like, what's going on? Because we always know that Rhaenyra is like been in the back of his head, right? Like it's something about her that is a challenge to him as well that I don't think he wants to admit. Maybe it's that she usurped him. She's the queen. He wanted that. It was something that her dad saw in him that he kept wanting, to rule. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's just always going to be in her orbit because she's the ruler and he didn't really get that opportunity yet. So maybe that's what it is. But it's just something about her that kind of just pulls him in that I don't think he wants to admit. So I think that's why he's like, all right, well, touch your face. I'm gone. I need to leave. I need to get out of here because she just called me on my crap, basically. Rhaenyra, like that's what I love about Rhaenyra, that it's like if it's something, sometimes it goes a little too far and she gets herself in situations. But yeah, if it's something like on her mind, she's gonna call you out on it in that moment. She's not gonna hold it in. And whatever happens, happens. If it's something that she needs to come at you for because she saw the look he was throwing at the table, she's like, you need to get that in check. Because I know you did something that I specifically told you not to do, and I'm the queen, need to rule here. So what's going on? So I like how she calls him out and keeps him on the stove, because not everybody's gonna do that. Because Daemon, I feel like got his own little game too. When he show up on the scene, everybody's like, okay, well, kind of cowering to him a little bit. He also got that money he can throw around. So I think she's the one person that like calls him out now that his brother is not there anymore. I think she's that one person that's left.
Agreed. And I'll also add, I don't know why he's so bent out of shape that he lost his title as heir, because once the series had Aegon, let's say he never named Rhaenyra, he would have lost that anyway. So, sir, you were never going to be king. Relax. But he feels slighted. Ego. Yeah, ego, that's for sure. So as he storms out, Baela, who I forget sometimes is his daughter, because he certainly doesn't treat her like a child, like his child. Baela and Rhaenyra,
he doesn't know how to emotionally connect with people.
Doesn't.
That's the problem. And when people get too close, he runs away.
That's true. He had a few moments back in the first season when they were little and then when they lost Lena. But yeah, once they grew up and they were fostered in other places, we don't know. But yeah, I literally have to remind myself, oh snap, that's his daughter. So Baela passes him in the corridor and calls out to him. She goes, "Father," and he just charges away. She enters Rhaenyra's chambers and she notices the evidence of Daemon's disagreements. There's like things in broken pieces around her. I'm sure she's very familiar with her dad's temper tantrums and possibly tantrums that he had with her mother, Lena. So she asks Rhaenyra, like, "Hey, you summoned me, what's up?" And she tells Baela in the morning, take Moon Dancer and keep a watch on King's Landing. She instructs her to stay high and to not engage, as they can afford no further mistakes, because she's depending on her. And I was like, yes, gold stars. I just love that Baela is like trusted. And Baela nods in agreement and asks after her father. And Rhaenyra is like, he has to follow his own path. Like, bye. And then later we see Daemon flying on the back of Caraxes to parts unknown. So that was a very quick scene. If you have thoughts on that, if not, I can move on to the next section.
Go Baela.
Go Baela, right?
Yeah, anything with Baela and Bethany and Tonya, I'm just here for. I just love seeing her. So
yes,
great.
I love that she is a valued member of the council. So back at the Red Keep, Helena and her ladies in waiting climb the grand staircase, and she passes Aegon, and it looks like she's hoping for some type of acknowledgement from her. But he looks at her, but he doesn't say anything. He basically ignores her. And this scene broke my heart, because at the end of the day, they both just lost their child. And I'm sure he's holding resentment, right, for the loss, because she was there when their son was murdered. So I was just like, dang, why can't you just give his sister a hug? Sister, wife, whatever. And the children.
Yeah, that part.
That part. In the children's room, Kristen watches as the staff takes down Jaeherys' bed. You know, a servant walks past with a bloody mattress. And we also see a moment where he feels guilty, right? Because if he had been posted up and not up with the queen, maybe this could have been prevented. And as these scenes are happening, we see Rhaenyra playing with her own young children, Aegon and Viserys. And she's looking down, or actually looking up. There's a scene that kind of echoes the funeral procession when the yellow petals are thrown down on Helena. When Rhaenyra looks up, you can see like dust particles falling down, like golden petals, which I thought was, I don't know, I thought that was a good edit. So she's almost in many ways reflecting on the death of this young boy. So we cut to Alicent. You know, she is getting a bath poured out for her. She loves taking baths. I've seen this woman take so many baths on the show. But you know, before she gets in, she goes to Kristen, who stands guard outside of her door, and she asks him, did he tell anyone? And I'm assuming it's about their affair. And Kristen says, what do you take me for? And she says, one who seeks absolution. And he tells her, there's none for what we've done. And she slams the door and disrobes and then goes into the tub and sinks underneath the water. And you can see like her hands grasping the tub and like falling into the water. And there's a really great shot of her opening up her eyes underwater. So we'll jump over to Kristen, our favorite Kingsguard. He interrupts Sir Eric with an A, and the rest of the Kingsguard who are having a meal. Kristen notices Sir Eric's white cloak is muddy, and he insists that, I can't say this name, Arik change immediately. Arik says it was muddy during the funeral procession. He just requests for a moment, you haven't eaten or slept in a day, you know, I'm just gonna get some energy. And Kristen's like, are you defying my authority? And he reminds him the white cloak signifies, you know, our purity and fidelity to the crown. Says the guy that's sleeping with the queen, right? He asks Eric, you know, if he will so easily sully their ancient honor. And Erica's like, you're right. You got that. I'm going to change it right now. And he dismisses himself. But as he's walking away, Kristen takes this opportunity to deflect, right, and project. And he asks Eric, where were you on that fateful night? Eric was like, I was with the king. You know, I was with King Aegon, who was entertaining his friends in the throne room. That's where I was supposed to be. And then Kristen was like, you didn't think to go upstairs, you know, to guard the children? And he was like, hold up. Where were you, Kristen? And why are you always so near the queen? And Kristen knocks over a table and deflects and tells Eric his brother is a traitor, and the rest of the Kingsguard pretty much like leave. They're like, whoa, this is too much. And they stop. So Eric tells them, you know, I separated from my brother. You know, we were one soul who shared two bodies. I renounced him when he left. And if I shared any sentiments with my brother, I would have gone with him. And Kristen's like, you betrayed your brother. And then on top of that, the heir of the throne was murdered on your watch. You know, you brought disgrace among our ranks and it has to be restored. And then Eric's like, well, what do you want me to do? And he tells them, go to Dragonstone. I want you to kill Rhaenyra. Erica's like, are you sending me to my death? Are you crazy? That's a suicide mission. He was like, not if you go as your twin. Like, it's like such a genius move, right? And, you know, Erica's like, that's not a good idea. You know, I'm a Kingsguard. I am not supposed to do anything regarding deception. I'm sworn to honor. And Kristen's like, no. This is your way to glory and to restore honor to our ranks. You know, if you accept this mission, you're going to prevent a war. And he convinces poor Sir Auric to go to Dragonstone. So your thoughts on that, those couple of scenes there? That was a lot.
Can I just do this one more time? He had the nerve. All right, I'm done. I just wanted to put this picture up one more time because what? But anyway, go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry. I just want to put that picture up one more time.
Oh, the white cloak of the symbol of purity and the hypocrisy of Kristen Cole.
Yeah, like this guy. Yeah.
That's what this is the reason why he is the most hated character on social media, because he is such a hypocrite. The way he treated Rhaenyra, in season 1, from, first of all, I guess he got friend zoned, so he got into his feelings, and then he's calling her all things but a child of God, and then now he's, hooking up with Alicent and doing the very things that he was accusing Rhaenyra of when she was going off and doing her thing with Harwin Strong. So, like, bruh, take mini seats, like, just chill, because you're a terrible, terrible person. And you're a killer. You're a murderer. Like,
oh yeah, he killed Sir Beesbury last season.
Yeah. Someone. So, like, bruh. So okay, I'm trying to think about what I wanted to go back and discuss. Oh yeah, Alicent and the bathing. So
yes,
I think that is intentional, that the showrunners and the writers want to show these scenes of her bathing, because I think that for Alicent, she's obviously indulging in all of these different sins. She's fornicating with Sir Christian Cole. She's surrounded herself with some terrible people. When you think about it, I mean, Larry's is a murderer. Who else?
Her feet. Sorry.
Yeah, he likes her feet.
Dad.
her dad. She's got some dealings with Missaria. Like, there's some really weird. There's some people in her. Oh, not Missaria. I'm sorry. Sir Christian Cole also, she's, got dealings with him, and he's also a murderer. So it's like she's surrounded herself with some pretty nefarious people, and she's a woman that's a woman of faith. She's this woman that, starting off, this girl that was very much kind of conservative, very wholesome, and I think she still is attached to that. Obviously, she's going and praying and all of that, praying to the seven and doing her faithful duties in that way. But I think taking the baths is a way of washing away those sins. Like, maybe for her, that's her way of, like, cleaning off of the daily sins that she's engaging in each day. And that's what we're seeing when we see those different scenes. So that's kind of what I gather. And then, like Christian Cole setting up Arik is just, it's wrong, because it's a death trap to me. Like, just seeing Arik's face as he's, like, shocked about this proposal, and even Arik knows, like, he is walking into a death trap. I just think is terrible on his part, but I feel bad for Arik. That's all, because I feel like he doesn't really have much of a choice in the situation. So, yeah.
Kristen need to send himself, because he's the one that's truly guilty about all this, not putting it on poor Arik, who just got a muddy cloak. But yeah, Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, he pissed me off so bad bringing the twins into this. He pissed me off so bad, because I've never seen somebody. Yeah, like, I've just never seen somebody just so, like, you can tell that he knows he's doing wrong stuff, but it's like he's so mad and he just so, like, I don't know. I guess he's just so, like, his feelings are just hurt so bad, like he a kid, that he can't let it go. And then it's like, I'm gonna drag other people into it. Like, you can tell that he knows what he's doing. It's just like he just won't stop. It's like we know that you're crazy and gonna do what you're gonna do, but did you have to bring them into it? Like, they're trying to follow what they need to do. He's trying to sit down and eat, and I know you ain't talking about a cloak. And it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, why are you coming after people? Just because you're miserable and you keep going against the your oath and what you vowed. Why are you dragging everybody down with you? Just go on and drag yourself down. Like, why are you taking everybody with you? So it's just, it's like he's just really ramping up for us to get to the end of the season and be like, why you still here, bro? It's just like he's just not giving any breaks. You better ride this thing out.
Yeah, I hate that guy. I'm sorry, what was that, Jamie?
Oh, I was just saying you're not alone.
I'm not
I
alone.
don't know anybody. I don't know anyone on social media that says that they like Christian Cole. I have not one post. I've not seen one tweet. I've not seen anything from the fandom where people are Team Green or Team Cole.
I'll say this. I've seen Team Green people in these Facebook groups, and it's always like edgelords that are just so like contrary and like who in their right mind is Team Green? But they're out there, so I don't want to offend the fan base. But yeah, we like Sir Kristen in the beginning when he was new and he was cute, right?
Yeah.
I never thought I would hate someone more than Joffrey and Ramsay. I hate them, but they were like outright villains, right? They knew they were villains and didn't pretend not to be anything else but a villain. This guy is just so self-righteous, just makes me more angry. So let me excuse me, get off my soapbox there. So we're back at Dragonstone. I just love how we're just in two locations, King's Landing and Dragonstone, you know, very insulary, unlike Game of Thrones. But on a cliffside, we see Baela. She's hitting target practice, and the girl is an excellent markswoman with her crossbow. And Jace finds her, and he's like, "Hey, you weren't at supper." And she's like, "I wasn't really hungry, and there's too many empty seats," which I thought was so sad because, like, there's no Luke. You know, Daemon's gone. So she asked Jace, you know, where her father is, and Jace thinks, I think he's in Harrenhal. So Baela thinks that, you know, sometimes I kind of hate him. I kind of hate my dad. And Jace sympathizes and tells her that it's, you know, it's hard with fathers. And she asks him, you know, what do you remember about my uncle, Sir Rhaenyra Velaryon, played by John McMillan? And Jace smiles and said he taught him how to fish, and he had a fondness for cake, which sounds, you know, very on brand for Rhaenyra. She also asked him about Harwin Strong, who was played by Ryan Core. And Jace recalls that he was gentle and fierce, and they called him Breakbones. And he believed that he loved him and his brothers. And Baela tells him, of course he did. And then Jace sighs and says, I miss Luke. And Baela places a comforting hand on his shoulder. I really love this scene because it acknowledges all of Jace's fathers. And I think this is one of the first times I really seen him talk about Sir Harwin as well. But your thoughts on that sweet, touching scene between Jace and Baela?
Harry Collett actually mentioned, and I will play the clip later, okay. But he mentioned in an interview with Black Girl Nerds about Daemon, of all people, being kind of like a stepdad figure to him.
And on the flip side of that, Harry, for you, you don't have a father figure to kind of help you in that way. So where does Jace's strength come from?
I would say, well, especially this season, I've tried to mix it together literally between his stepdad Daemon and his real mother Rhaenyra. I've just tried to mix the qualities because I suppose Rhaenyra and Daemon is all he's learning from, except for when he's getting looked after by the Maesters, but he's not going to ever be like the Maesters, you know. I feel like he has the confidence of Daemon, but the sort of courage and devotion and strength of Rhaenyra. So I've really tried to sort of merge the two. But I think Jace admires Daemon as much as, you know, sometimes doesn't appreciate what he does. I think he admires him, and he's kind of a wannabe Daemon. He kind of wants to be like him, which I think is interesting, really, because he's gone through so many father figures and his head's all over the place. He's unsure.
So I'm very interested to see how their relationship will play out in this series, because I would have never pegged Daemon to be kind of like a stepdad figure for Jace. So but I loved this conversation that Jace has with Baela, and yeah, bringing up Rhaenyra, who we still don't know. You know, we don't know. Is he alive? Is he living his best life with
his best life with his boo and Pentos eating cake?
It's 5 months, so you know, maybe he's out there with his boo. Yeah, I think, I would say he's still alive, because even on the HBO website where they have like the family tree and they always update when there's a character death, they'll have deceased up there. For Rhaenyra, they do not have him listed as deceased. So it's canon right now. According to HBO, he's still alive.
Alive and well.
Alive and well. So, and I just really love the scenes with Jace and Bela. They're, by the way, Bethany and Harry have really great chemistry on
They
screen.
have awesome chemistry. And off screen too. They're really good. In the junket, they were really good together. They have a good chemistry.
They're really good together. So I kind of want to ship them in real life. But yeah, it was just great seeing the scene. So yeah, I am curious to see how specifically Jace's relationship with Daemon will play out in this series.
Noted. Ryan, any thoughts on that cute little scene?
No, I mean, it's kind of, the point's already taken. Yeah, it was just cute. It was just so cute. I love their moments. I just feel like it just gives us like just a breath, like we can breathe for a little bit, and it's just fun. Yeah, like it brings that feeling out in you. Like it's just, yeah, like it's just like a hug. It's very nice. You get to hear them talk about, like, well, my dad was like this, but I'm learning it, and they get to kind of compare stories. So yeah, for me, it just felt like I could breathe for a little bit because I'd be stressed. And it just felt like a little bit of a moment, a little scene where it was like a little levity to like all this like grief and revenge. So I enjoyed it.
Yes. More Bela and Jace scenes, please. Thank you, Ryan. So we end up at a brothel on the Street of Silk, and we see Aemon with the brothel Madame Sylvie, played by Michelle Bonnard, who was his first. If you remember her last season, she had eyes for Aemon. She said, "My, how you've grown." So it seems like they're very close now. He lays in her lap and she strokes his hair, and he tells her that the murderers were after him. He wasn't at the Red Keep. And, Sylvie's like, yeah, because you're with me. And he says something that I thought was, I wouldn't say arrogant, but I was like, that's an interesting angle. He says, I'm proud that Daemon considered me such a foe and wished to murder me in my sleep. That means he's afraid of me. And Sylvie agrees and says, he's grown into a man. And then she kind of uses that moment as a way to kiss him. And he's like, oh, not right now. I still have to ponder, I still need to think. And he prefers to lay in her lap. And she continues to play with his hair, and he laments, the whole business with Luke. He regrets his death. And he said, I lost my temper that day and I'm sorry for it. But then he kind of justifies it. He says, the Valarians used to tease him when he was a child because he was so different. And she reminds him, she had a really great line that says, when princes lose their temper, others suffered, including small folk like myself. And that line made me think of a phrase that goes, the grass suffers when two elephants fight. And then I thought, well, how is this connected to the show? So I thought about the elephant in Jaehaerys' room with Helena, and I might be overthinking, but I just wanted to make a connection there. So I really was moved by that scene. So I'll stop there for that brief interlude with Aemon and his lady.
I want to read
that mommy issues.
Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I was just gonna say it's giving mommy issues. It's giving
it is.
It's giving what we doing? Like, I don't know. It was just weird. It was weird. But I mean, I guess to each his own. I mean, dragons, this is the world we're in. I guess to each his own. But
better than his sister. Sorry.
There you go.
This is the most normal relationship.
It's not the sister, it's not the niece, so whatever. All right, we'll take his mommy issues on what you're doing. But yeah, it was just interesting to let them have, because usually I think Jamie was the one that was like talking about his like walk when he comes in, like it's like gangster walk when he comes in, and that's all we get to see, right? Like he gives you that look. And he's like very calculated, like, okay, we need to take over this area, then we need to move over here. That's all you get with his scene. So I think now was like finally time to kind of see that, that emotional side, what's really going on. We know he's hurting, but this is the first time we really get to see him kind of explain and talk about it a little bit, and talk about how, his family essentially is like, yeah, you stay over there and we're going to be cool. Like, you don't come over here. So it's interesting to kind of hear his thoughts on it and, see him kind of explain that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, at the same time, you try to listen to him talk and see, but like you said, he's staying away from his sister and his nieces, so we good, I guess.
The stuff we see on this show. Jamie, what do you think of that scene?
So I saw that you had mentioned at the brothel on the Street of Silk, and it made me think about this really great post that someone put on Threads about Aemond, and I'll read it. I always got to give people their credit. So this is from Shades of Liss, and Liss has 3 S's. She says, I hate him, but Aemond's silk press is the toughest wig on King Landing's block. I love black Twitter and black threads. I love it.
He's in a nasty little bust down with the silver part, okay, with the middle part. he does have the best wig on the show.
He really does. I'm like, okay, I need to know where he got that silk press done. Look,
shout out to hair and makeup.
60 inches, honey.
Yes. Look it up. So, Ryan, you brought up something good about brought up a good point about the mommy issues, because that scene, he's like in the fetal position.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Why is he in a fetal position like a baby? So there is something about these very powerful men that become like little babies when they're around women. And, it's just very interesting to see that dichotomy with that whole dynamic. So, yeah, very, very interesting indeed. And there's something I also want to point out that someone pointed out that I forgot to mention about Aegon. Like, we're all kind of feeling sorry for him that he lost, which, as we should, when you lose a child in that way, definitely someone deserves your sympathy. But let's not forget, Aegon has probably fathered a lot of children, and those children have probably suffered pretty terrible atrocities because they're in slave pits. So I just realized that when someone brought that up, I'm like, okay, yeah, who knows how many kids that because, he's got it on with a lot of women, and also he's, the R word. So he's done some pretty terrible things to where he's planted some seeds, and there's some bastard children out there that are not been treated very well. So I can't fully think that he's like a great father in that way, just because of what happened, where he had a very close interaction and a close relationship with Jaeherys. But I will have sympathy for the loss, but I'm not going to put him in a category to say that, he's an endearing father, which I think I've said that before. But when someone brought that up to me, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. But he's got like a whole bunch of bastards running around that are being treated like crap right now.
Yeah, little dragon seed. He spread his dragon seed. He got dragon seed running around. But I'm not to his defense. I can't believe I'm saying this, but in those times, right, they do not pay attention to acknowledge or even consider bastards, especially lowborn, their children. Their pride and joy are their own royal children. So, I mean, we saw all throughout the show. Look at how Jon Snow, was treated by Catelyn. Or Catelyn, I should say. I don't even think it's a thought in his mind that he has like 20 kids running around. He did what he had to do. He went about his business, right? And that's all we can say.
I mean, the whole system.
But we can't defend the fact that he had sexually assaulted women, though.
Oh no, not at all. No, I'm not defending that at all. I'm just saying he ain't thinking about them babies. He probably don't even know he has half of them. He was just doing his thing and went back to the Red Keep to drink some more. But yeah, and now back to your womb comment. Even like the room in the brothel was like just like a curtain, right, with like a rounded bed, almost like a womb. So yeah, he liked them. Oh, I mean, in the books they said Aemond liked older women, so this wasn't the first time. Okay, so now we go to Hugh the Hammer. If you remember, he was introduced in the last episode. He's the blacksmith that was asking for King Aegon to pay for his services. He returns home to his wife and sick child, and we basically kind of learn what is like for the small folk, like what the economy is looking like with this war impending. His wife tells me that the cost of food has skyrocketed, right? Unlike our own world right now. And they barely have enough to feed themselves. And the wife even said she had to walk like 10 times further and pay 3 times the price for like a chicken or something. I mean, it's just, they're really struggling. And Hugh calls the food merchants selfish. He's like, how dare they drive up their prices? And his wife is like, look, I don't blame them for trying to survive. I would understand if I were in their position. And he basically reassures her that, the king is going to pay them for their work. And his wife is like, that's all well and good, but when? And honestly, I'm afraid. So what I did like about this scene, it might have been a throwaway scene, but it does give us insight as to what regular everyday people deal with under the rule of these, royal people. Any thoughts on that small, quick scene?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really important to know the opinions of the small folk, because that really will weigh in politically to see, where their allegiances lie with which house. And I'm sure folks like Otto will put a lot of stock into that. So kind of getting those little scenes and those little moments to, get sort of their perspectives on, their socioeconomic well-being and, their livelihood and all of that, I think is really important to show those factions of the show. So I hope we get to see a little bit more of that, because that does play a big role. Like, I know that it's good and it's more dramatic and more interesting and compelling to show the grandiose, throne room and the wealth and the riches of House Hightower and House Targaryen, but also, like, let's see what's going on with the small folk and, in these various territories and counties, because they matter too. So, and they could get together, a legion of them, and do some damage. And we've seen that in Game of Thrones. So
we have.
So yeah, like don't take them for granted.
All right, so we're going to head over to Driftmark to see our boy Alan of Hull, where he been hiding all episode. He's been working restoring the sea snake when he's approached by his younger brother, Adam. And I'm saying younger, I'm assuming he just looks younger, but he's big fine, played by Clinton Liberty. I'm sorry, they look, hey.
Look, there go Clinton. There go
he looks so different. He looks different in that photo. Is that the same dude?
Clinton, what happened? Look, you got the Game of Thrones glow up. Clinton, you still fine.
But... you know who he looks like? He looks like who is it? Fab from Milli Vanilli.
A little bit. He's very pretty. He's like very like beautiful, like strong, just look at them cheekbones. Anyways, I'm getting distracted by this man. Let me look at my notes. He's a shipwright, and I had to Google this. I'm like, what is a shipwright? They build ships. So he's been away for a few months, and he embraces his brother. Adam teases Alan about, his new position with Corlys, the fact that Corlys even commended him from his service. Remember, Alan saved Corlys from drowning. He even asked Alan, are you going to sail with Corlys once the ship is repaired? And Adam tells him, like, honestly, I'm not feeling it. And it seems like Alan wants to stay under the radar, right? Like he just wants to do his job. He don't need no approval. He don't need to be praised for it. He just wants to do what he's supposed to do. And then Alan's like, look, something's going down because all the shipwrights from Hull got pulled over here to build this fleet, at the fastest pace. So we're putting all our resources into this. And Alan's, I'm going to get their names mixed up. Why do you do this, George? Adam's like, look, I just want to serve Corlys. I don't want no parts in war. And remember, he was fighting in the Stepstones for years. He don't want to get stuck back into another war. And, he doesn't want this opportunity to distinguish himself. He just wants to do his job. But then Adam's like, he owes you. He owes you. In fact, he owes us. And I thought that line was interesting, but I'll leave it at that. And then Alan brushes him off and, asks about like whether or not his famous stew is brewing back at home. And he's like, oh, I got you. So they, not only is Adam fine and can build ships, but he can cook too. And then later, while he's collecting crabs on the shoreline, Adam spots sea smoke flying high above him. And as a book reader, I just thought, So just make sure y'all paying attention because there are no throwaway scenes on this show. So I'll stop there. That was, a very short scene, but your thoughts on the relationship and the friendship between Adam and Alan, and why is Alan so against anything having to do with honorifics when it comes to Corlys?
Bring that up. Okay,
they're fine. I think also because they're fine.
Yeah, I don't know what to add to this other than let me just add my fun commentary. I will say this, that I still think that the actor that plays Adam of Hull looks like Fab from Milli Vanilli. I think that
I hate you, Jamie, for pulling this.
I think that he is his doppelganger.
He is. They look exactly like, wow. I knew I was like, he looked like somebody, but I couldn't place it. Wow. Well, they're beautiful men.
That's initially who I thought of when I saw Adam on the screen. I was like, I've seen him before, and as a Milli Vanilli fan from back in the day, I knew it. So again, I'm always here for more melanin on House of the Dragon. So I'm excited. I think I mentioned in episode 1 that because Corlys said that he's indebted to Adam. So curious to see what that means and what that relationship is going to look like. And what does or Alan? He said that. Did I say Adam or Alan?
I don't know. There's the names are George. Why?
George. Why? Why? And didn't you name some characters? I don't think it's in House of the Dragon. I think it's in the Duncan Egg books. Didn't he name some characters Bert and Ernie? Because he's a Sesame Street fan.
I don't. You know what? I haven't read a Night of the Seven Kingdoms yet. I guess he puts out so much work but hasn't finished. The latest game. So.
We didn't talk about that at the start, but the Hedge Knight, the Hedge Knight is the name of the book, but I think it's called A Night of the
Seven Kingdoms. Yep,
is the name of the show that they're going to be. They're actually filming right now, and I'm like, I guess Winds of Winter is never getting to
or Dream of Spring.
All of these shows you green lighting and it's not getting done. But I am excited for I'm excited for that. Now I got to read the Duncan Egg books. But anyways, I just brought that up to say that he's so weird with the names because I think there's a character or characters named Bert and Ernie because he's a Sesame Street fan. So, but going back to Adam and Alan. I'm curious to know if Alan of Hull, what that relationship is going to be like. And then also Adam, now that he's been brought into the mix, how he plays into that. So we'll see that whole dynamic between those three. And also, wasn't there supposed to be a spinoff of Lord Corlys, the sea snake?
Yes, it was supposed to call it the sea snake. So that didn't go anywhere. Apparently.
Oh goodness.
Yep. Right. Any thoughts on the brothers?
Man,
for real.
They cute. I like keep adding on the chocolate to the show. I love it. I just because I remember GLT all we got was like Masande. We had Worm, but it was like you was just kind of holding on to those characters as blurred.
So
I just like.
Yeah.
So I'm loving this. I'm loving it. Just keep adding them in. Keep them coming.
Yes, we love the melanin. I do like their relationship. They're very playful. Alan's very serious and Adam likes to play around and he seems to lighten up when his brother comes around. So it was nice to see. So we'll see how that pans out for everyone. So we're still at Driftmark. And apparently Rhaenys has visited her husband and they, had some marital bliss. I don't know how else to say it. They're lying in bed together post
The
coitus.
one healthy relationship on this show, by the way.
Right.
Rhaenys and Corlys. Yes.
Yes.
We're here for
Married
it.
couple that actually loves each other. Look at that.
Loves each other. And that
So
aren't related to each other.
and they're not related, right? Yeah, they're not related.
Man, they just winning out here. I can't take this.
That's so odd. They're not related. Yeah, this is how bad the show is. He tells Rhaenys that he mistrusts the silence of Daemon. You know, he flew away when he was most needed. And Rhaenys tells him wherever he flies, he wishes to be master. And Corlys says, well, he's the king consort. He has power. What is he running away from? And she reminds him, he's the king consort. He is not king. And Rhaenys, someone who also was passed over for the throne, understands his position. So this is one of the first times you see someone actually sympathizing with Daemon and his plight. And now that Viserys is dead, you know, all claims to the thrones are kind of in doubt, right? You know, Rhaenyra's position isn't promised. Aegon's position isn't promised. The throne is for the taking. And even though, you know, Daemon could potentially usurp the throne, she doesn't think he will, but she understands why he feels the way he feels. But he also is not going to let Rhaenyra reign over him. So it's a very complicated relationship. She believes if Daemon can at least take Harrenhal, then all will be forgiven. But in the meantime, you know, she's the only person in the Black Council that can be really trusted by everyone. And she believes she's going to remain at Dragonstone and just make sure that everything's in order and she doesn't fail the queen. In the great, so I'll jump forward. So that's the scene between the one sane couple. Do you guys want to comment on that, or because that was a short scene, but just wanted your thoughts. Keep on going. Yes, they're healthy. We like that. In the Great Library of Dragonstone, Mysaria is escorted to meet with Rhaenyra by Sir Stephen Darkland. He's played by Anthony Flanagan. Rhaenyra asked if Mysaria was aware of the murder of Jaeherys, and Mysaria was aware, but she was not involved. She only gave Daemon 2 names. And Rhaenyra's like, you know, you conspired with the enemy, meaning the High Towers. And Mysaria once again says it was transactional. I wish I could get out of everything that I did wrong and say, oh, it was a transaction. That's that's her excuse. And Rhaenyra's like, who are you really? And she ends up going into her background. She says, you know, I was a young girl. I sold my body and then I made myself useful. I realized that I could collect information and that made me really valuable. And I was used up by people like your husband, Daemon. I was used up by Otto Hightower and I want no parts of it. I'm not a threat to you. So she's trying to convince Rhaenyra, like, just let me go. Your husband promised me that if I gave him 2 names to help him, that he will let me go. Just let me go. And Rhaenyra's, I mean, she's not dumb. She can't really trust Mysaria. So she tells her, like, no, you're staying. And I thought it was interesting that Mysaria had kind of said something along the lines of, where's Daemon? And Rhaenyra said he's gone. She says, oh, he tends to do that, right? Like she's also at one point was in a relationship with Daemon, and she can sympathize and even empathize with Rhaenyra. And that's when Rhaenyra recognizes her and she goes, wait a minute, weren't you supposed to marry him? Weren't you pregnant with his baby? And she was like, yeah, that was a joke that he told everybody. I didn't think it was funny. So I actually really was entertained by this exchange between the two of them because they're kind of like Eskimo sisters. But I'll turn it over to you guys for your thoughts on that brief scene.
I like it because I want Rhaenyra to have more people that can kind of play and you know, pull some of these people that the green team kind of have that are working the system. You know, that's kind of like a disadvantage to her right now because she's playing it like straight and narrow for the most part. You know, other than what Daemon wants to do on the side, whatever he's doing. But she's trying to go, you know, very straight with it. She's trying to figure out her information. She's like, can I prevent this from happening? So I think it's interesting that she came back and she was like, well, you know, I had some of these similar things with Daemon as well. Now, can you trust her all the way? She go after that bag. So you got to watch her. But it is interesting that she's coming back. And this could be a really good tool for Rhaenyra, you know, in the long run. Like she has that, like I think she needs more people on her side that can you know, she's not quite the Larys like snake ish. She don't got it. She don't quite get the connections, but she's chased the bag long enough, and she's got put under the bus enough, by enough dirty men where she is starting to work that system that I think Rhaenyra needs. So I think that's going to be so interesting to watch. Like I think it's going to be. I'm glad she's back and not one of those like, just for Daemon to kind of use her a little bit, get what he wants, kind of toss her off. So I like that the storyline is going to amp up a little bit, and I feel like she's got a little bit more that wasn't explored in season 1. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, while I think it's cool that they have this sort of connection by way of Daemon with their experiences with him and their relationships, I don't think it's going to mean anything. I think that Mysaria, at the end of the day, she has a price, and I don't think she has an allegiance to anyone. So if your money bags is heavier than this person's money bags, I'm going to this one. So Rhaenyra is right for not letting her go and not trusting her, and knowing that if she did let her go, that she would sell her out, because that's exactly what Mysaria would probably do. So yeah, like I see how the scene kind of tries to play it as if, oh, well, Daemon is that guy. Well, you know how he is. Yeah, I know how he is, kind of thing. It's like, yeah, okay. But at the end of the day, you're still my enemy. And I think that that's interesting. I am curious to know, though, how did she get that white scar, which she never answered the question. So, yeah.
No, it looks like she got slit, but that's why they call her the white worm, right? Because it looks like a white worm across her throat.
It looked like a tan line to me, actually. I was like, it looked like she'd been wearing a necklace for like 6 months out in the sun or something like that.
I'm like, I don't know about that scar. Yeah. Although I will say, she keeps reinforcing to Rhaenyra and to Daemon that she hates the Hightowers because of them burning down her manse, right? And how they treated her servants. So I do think she is about the bag, but she has a personal vendetta a bit at this point against the Hightowers, specifically because of what they did to her. I think if that wasn't the case, then she would be more of a loose cannon. But we'll see how this friendship evolves. So in Dragonstone, or sorry, not Dragonstone, there's only 2 locations. In King's Landing, we see Ulf the White. He is played by Tom Bennett. He sees women and children grieving beneath the bodies of hanged men. And he asks the woman, who the men were. And she says, they were rat catchers in the king's employ. He says, well, what did they do? Well, we all know, right? And we see a glimpse of Cheese hanging from the castle. And his dog is watching him so sadly. Poor doggy. I know he kicked him, but apparently the dog don't care about that. That man probably fed him.
Yeah, dogs are so loyal.
They're so loyal. And I will point out, in the books, there was no trace of Cheese, right? They just said that blood was caught, Cheese escaped. But the show basically explains why nobody knew what happened to Cheese, because he was hung with everybody. So that's why he escaped without a trace. He was dead. And Otto is not happy about this. Obviously, this was ordered by Aegon, and he confronts his grandson for hastily hanging all the rat catchers. And Aegon's like, look, Blood said there was an accomplice and he was a rat catcher, so I killed everybody, And then Otto's like, you killed innocent men. And he's like, yeah, but one guilty one. I was like, this guy. And Otto says, they were fathers, they were husbands, they were sons, and now they're being grieved by women and children in the streets. The death of Jaeherys won them support, and you set us back. And Kristen's like, mind your tongue. Shut up, Kristen. When speaking to the king. I was like, just stay in the corner and look mean. Otto says, I can talk however I want to my grandson. And Aegon says, an act against the king is an act against the realm, and anyone who does it will be paid back tenfold. He got revenge in his blood now, and he will not be perceived as weak. And Otto's like, do you realize what you've done? I've done everything for you. You have no idea what we've done essentially behind the scenes to get you where you are today. And I don't know, Rhys has the most wonderful lines in the scene. He calls them thoughtless, feckless, and self-indulgent. Their position's been compromised. And Aegon's like, I don't want to win this war with ink. I want to spill blood. And they just go back and forth. They're arguing. And then Aegon says, I'm a man of action. And Sir Kristen is a man of action too. And Otto's like, what did you do? And he's like, oh, he sent Sir Ulrich to Dragonstone to kill Rhaenyra. And he's pretending to be his twin. Isn't it a brilliant plan? You can just see Otto saying, like, this guy is an idiot. And he calls him ill-considered and trifling. And I was like, you tell him, Otto. That's the one time I was on Otto's side on this one. He paces the room and, you know, he's saying, like, Aegon, why can't you be more like your father? You know, his forbearance, his judiciousness, his dignity. And Aegon's like, F dignity. My father is dead. And Otto was like, and we're more poor for it. And he even says, you know, Viserys was right about you. And Aegon's like, what? My dad made me king. And Otto's like, is that what you think? And he turns to leave. And I don't know why Otto thought he could walk away from that conversation unscathed. But Aegon is pissed now. And he says, remove your badge. You know, you were my father's hand. And now you are no longer mine. And Otto's like, you wouldn't dare. And Aegon goes, I have dared, and I find it stimulating. And I'm now going to use that line going forward. Otto calls him an insolent pup. And he says he needs a strong hand to guide him. And then Aegon demands that he give the badge to Sir Kristen, because Sir Kristen's going to be his iron fist, or a fist of steel. And Otto goes, you will regret this. And he takes off his badge and he throws it at Kristen's feet. And he goes to leave, and Aegon's like, you're dismissed. So I'll stop there because that was a really meaty scene. Your thoughts?
I mean, Otto is like, it's like he was staring it in the direction he wanted to and then turn the whole thing upside down. Because it's like it's like he starts talking a certain way, like he has a way with words and he can kind of, you know, convince you and kind of lean you the right way because he has that history of being the hand. He always leans on that history and I know this and I'm right about this. But then you can see Aegon just don't care about that. Like, I don't understand why he thought, like you said, I don't know why he thought he could walk out of the room after he said that, because he was laying it on thick. It wasn't like it was just that one comment of you just being irresponsible. How dare you hang all the rat catchers, you know, blah, 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 blah. But he's just like going in on his character. You know, you are not like your father, like everything that you could do to possibly press somebody like Aegon, who really don't want to do it anyway, but he knows it's what he has to do, you know, birthright and how it goes. But yeah, I don't know why he did that. I'm like, you know, this is your whole game to politically make these moves and get where you want to get. And now you're not the hand anymore. So I have no idea what he was thinking, but I guess another misstep on Otto's part. We know he probably got something else that he's going to come up with that he's not the hand anymore to try to get back in. But yeah, it's looking rough for your boy right now. But yeah, Aegon was like, he turned up in this episode where it's like, again, where like he got a pass. You know, he's done stuff. He lost his son. So we kind of expected he was going to be a little like unhinged, but he got cheat. Like because first of all, I didn't think he was going to get blood. I can't believe these guys got that quick. Like they don't know how to get the bag like Mysteria and keep it moving apparently. Because I can't believe they got like this. But yeah, when he got blood and then haven't seen cheese there. But yeah, I feel like he's on like a very dangerous war path. It's like you get it, but at the same time, you like, all right, man. All right, like you took out everybody else along with cheese. It wasn't just cheese. So yeah, it's getting a little dangerous there, and we know that Cole is going to be a great hand for him. Nothing can go wrong. It's going to go well.
Heavy on the sarcasm. Jamie, thoughts on that scene?
Yeah, well, I want to go back because this was a long recap. So the rat catcher storyline, I'm glad that they changed it in the book because you mentioned that, you know, cheese is never found. And I'm glad that they actually show him being hung because, number one, justice is served. Mm-hmm. But it would have been really messed up if Aegon ordered this, you know, all these rat catchers to be hung and then they didn't show that shot of
cheese.
That would have been really messed up if they did that. But yeah, I'm glad that, you know, both Blood and Cheese got their just desserts. So that storyline is ended, clean, done. Good on that, and let that be the canon for that story. As far as this scene with Otto and Aegon and Kristen Cole, number one, you had mentioned, well, I didn't think that, you know, Otto could walk away from that scene and get away with it. I did, because you gotta remember, this is his grandson. So I don't think he sees Aegon as he knows he's the king, but he doesn't really see him as a king as everyone else does. At the end of the day, he sees Aegon as his grandson. So he feels like he could talk to him any kind of way. So, you know, these decisions that Aegon is making, and they are very short-sighted, and he is acting off of emotion instead of actually thinking with, you know, a measured way of kind of coming up with these decisions. He does have to kind of slow his roll a little bit as Hand of the King, but I get that that's Otto's response, and it does make sense that he would talk to Aegon like that. But you got to remember also that Larry's planted that seed in Aegon.
Larry's got in his head.
He got into his head in episode 1, so we kind of saw this coming. And this was just the moment to give Aegon the reason that he needed to get rid of Otto and give, you know, that famous, I don't know, what is it called? A pin, a brooch, the hand of the
a pin. Yeah, the Hand of the King pin.
Yeah, to give that over to Kristen Cole. I mean, wouldn't have chosen Kristen out of all the people, but you know, I guess because of this remarkable plan with Eric and Arik, that was his decision, I'm guessing. But also, you know, I feel like he's a little lapdog too, because he's had his little moments in the council room where he's kind of sucked up to him and all of that. So yeah, you know, we saw this moment coming. I feel bad for Otto, because I know he's really, really infuriated by this moment.
You feel bad?
I mean, I shouldn't. Yeah, that is a poor choice of words, because I don't feel bad for Otto. Like, he's a terrible person, but I know that this is really, really infuriating to him right now. Like, this is his whole world, being Hand of the King. So now everything that he knows, everything that, you know, he values in this world has been completely stripped away from him. And I guess in that sense, you know, you kind of feel a little sorry for the dude, but yeah, he's got some work to do if he wants to try to hold any sort of position of power again.
Yeah, fired again. Second time he's been fired as Hand of the King. I know he's tired.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, had a little bit too much dip on his chip this time around. So, he walks out. He ends up speaking with his daughter as he packs up his belongings. And I mean, Otto's right. Otto keeps a leash on Aegon. He needs a strong person beside him, someone that's politically, I want to say inept, who's politically savvy. And there's nothing savvy about Kristen Cole. So obviously this is a blow to the Greens, whether Aegon believes it or not. He expresses as much to Alicent. But he says he still has a grandson who's being fostered in Old Town, Daeron Targaryen. And he may still heed to instruction. I just want to pause for a second, because everyone was complaining last season about the fact that Daeron Targaryen was nowhere to be found. He is the second son of the series in Alicent, and apparently he's been hidden away in Old Town this entire time. Alicent suggests he goes to Hightower to ensure the loyalty of the Tyrells. I'm sorry, to High Garden. There's so many same words. High Garden, to ensure the loyalty of the Tyrells. And then when Aegon's temper cools, Alicent will convince him to reinstate Otto. And Otto's just like, look, we got to stick together. It's you and me. Now he wants Alicent's, voice. Now he wants her opinion, because now he's outside of power. And Allison, she tells her father, Dad, I sinned. I don't know why she keeps bringing this up. I guess it's her guilt, right? Her conviction coming back to her. He's like, daughter, I don't wish to hear it. And she leaves Otto's room, and I guess she goes to Aegon, and she finds him weeping. Now, I don't know if Aegon's crying because he's still upset about his son or because he just fired his grandfather, but he's going through it. And instead of comforting her son, she walks away. Like, she doesn't even acknowledge him. So I thought that was kind of odd. And then back in her chambers, she prepares for bed. And this is something someone else pointed out. I forget who, but a number of people noted that now that Allison is no longer queen, she moved out of her chambers, and that's where Helena is, and she's actually sleeping in the same room that Rhaenyra was in. So I'm just saying that's kind of odd. But she prepares for bed, and Kristen's looking on, and then she slaps him over and over, pushing him against the wall. And you know what happens when you're angry at your man, but y'all have this chemistry, and they end up just kissing, and he slides his hands up her gown, and she about to sin again.
Here we go again with these two.
Here we go again. So we're in the home stretch of this episode. I know this is a long recap, guys, but there's just so much going on in episode 2. So we start to wrap things up. In Mysaria's cell back in Dragonstone, Rhaenyra ends up honoring her word and tells Mysaria she is released. There's a ship bound for Pentos, and she orders Sir Eric to help Mysaria collect her things. Then she has him arrange for a guard to escort her down to her ship. Sir Eric nods. Mysaria bows to Rhaenyra. Obviously, she's shocked because why is this queen giving me mercy? And as she walks with the guard towards the harbor, she notices Sir Auric making his way to the castle. She realizes there's a plot afoot, and she asks the guard to take her back to the castle. So Sir Auric, pretending to be his brother, Sir Eric, approaches the castle disguised, obviously as his twin. A guard of the household questions why he's outside, and he gives this lie, saying, there's a murderer afoot. I had to patrol the castle, pay attention. And he's let in. He sneaks away through the corridor, and he's very careful to avoid his brother because he doesn't know where he is. Rhaenyra, on the other hand, is retiring for the evening. Her lady-in-waiting, Alinda Massey, she's played by Jordan Stevens, suggests that she fetch a draft from the maester to help Rhaenyra sleep because she hasn't been resting in a long time. Obviously, she's dealing with a lot of stress. Sir Eric makes his way to her chambers, and he spies Rhaenyra through one of the doors and locks it. Then he goes around to the other side of the bedroom where Sir Laurent Marbrand, who's played by Max Rosalie, stands guard. And he tells him, it's been a strange day. I'm really restless. You go ahead and take off for the night. I'll stand guard. And he doesn't question it, right? Because he thinks that he is Sir Eric. Rhaenyra begins to settle in. And when Sir Auric walks in unexpectedly and draws his sword, he says, "Believe me, I had no choice." Naturally, she thinks that he's Sir Auric, and she's like, "I don't understand." Then the real Sir Eric bursts in screaming, "Brother!" And this entire fight sequence goes down. And so I'll try to describe it. I try to pay so much attention because I want to know who was who, but you can't tell because they look exactly the same. So he draws his sword. Eric draws his sword and he begs his brother, "Don't do this." And Auric insists that he has to, and his brother betrayed him. And then he turns to strike Rhaenyra, but Eric stops him, placing himself between the queen and Auric. The two start to fight. They each slice each other's thighs, right? Eric gets the better of his brother, hits him in the face. He causes him to fall. Then Rhaenyra cowers in a corner and tells Alinda to fetch Sir Laurent. Auric goes after Rhaenyra again, and then Eric stops him by sweeping him off his feet and strikes him in the face with a boot. Then, as the two exchange swords, Sir Laurent comes in, and he's trying to help, but he's like, which is which? And nobody knows, right? So they just watch helplessly as they tackle each other on the ground. And this is who I think is who, based off rewinding this scene over and over. I was like, I need to figure out who is who. So Eric gets on top of Auric, right? And then eventually Arik gets the best of his brother and pins him to the ground. He's punching him in the face and he begins to choke him. And then Eric is struggling to breathe, and he tells his brother, we were born together. And then Arik cries, you abandoned us, but I still love you, brother. So then Eric sticks his finger in Arik's wounded leg and pushes him off. And then Arik grabs his sword, and Eric grabs his sword and rams it through Arik's body. And so his brother falls, and Eric approaches Rhaenyra and says, your grace, forgive me, which I interpreted as, forgive me for what I'm about to do. And then he falls on his own sword and kills himself, because obviously he just killed his brother. So I will stop there for that action-packed scene. And your thoughts? I know, it's a lot.
Yeah, that was just really gut-wrenching and heartbreaking to see these two brothers. I mean, the fact that they even were serving, rival houses was sad in and of itself, but the fact that they had to come to blows in this way was just really sad to watch. And also, I appreciate you following the details of who was fighting who, because I wasn't even paying attention like that. I was like, I don't know. I was like, Rhaenyra, I don't like who. But yeah, it was really sad when Eric, committed suicide after seeing that he killed his brother, because that's got to be the worst thing in the world, to have to go through something like that. So yeah, it was such a sad scene. And like I said before, I mean, I think Eric knew when Kristen Cole gave him that order that he was going into his death. So yeah.
Yep. Ryan, your thoughts on that scene?
I just first I wanted to go back to Mysaria. That's what I'm talking about her being able to notice certain things that I think could help, because I think Rhaenyra would have been like, if she's not really sleeping, she's probably kind of disoriented a little bit, not thinking about it a lot. Him being able to sneak up to her room like that, and the guards being confused, because they're twins. Like, you're trying to figure out who is who. So, her kind of giving that little hint, like, well, let me go back and let me help. Now, she could still be chasing the bag, and she don't like the high towers. But I do think that's gonna be a good tool to kind of help Rhaenyra out. But yeah, I hate to lose the twins. I wish they would have just went over to Rhaenyra's side, to be honest. Like, I wish they would just both over there. Like, I just hated the whole thing. Like, it just made me so sad that they had to choose. Like, they had to fight it out because they're on two different sides. Then, the one brother, I ain't even gonna try to remember the name, so I'm gonna mess somebody up. But I know he was figuring out that he had to end the discussion and end the fight, and had to take his own life. It's just heartbreaking, because you just can't even imagine. Like, they were trying to be honorable. And again, Cole, you're pissing me off. Like, he gonna keep doing it till we get to the end. But they just tried to be honorable and be with this family. The family split up, so they were like, okay, you take this side, I'm gonna take this side, and thought they could just do their duty and go about their business. But yeah, that was just rough. And you could see Rhaenyra looking like, like she knew what he was getting ready to do. But it was just so much going on in the scene where it was just like, it was just a sad ending to just be like, well, they took somebody else out. Like, the crooked people still keeping on, and they took somebody decent out. So I don't know. And I just liked her having like somebody like that in her corner. I just think the more people we have on the black side, because they're having to section out and kind of take on this war and kind of, and be fighters. So I just kind of feel like the more people we get on that side, the better. So the green, I feel like it's like slowly just trying to, like, one at a time through sneakiness, take out each one of their players. So I'm hoping they build it back up next episode. I'm like, man, another one down.
Yeah. It was very hard to watch. So I'll give some book background on the different accounts of what happened. So there was a septem named Septem Eustace that simply said the brothers slew each other, right? That's all that was said. Then there was a maester named Maester Munkin, not to be confused with my relatives, who said that the brothers fought for over an hour. Eric slew Arik, and his brother died, but then Eric was alive for 4 days but he was like mortally wounded. He got stabbed in the gut, and he was like cursing his brother. And then there were stories that were written, poems and songs that were written about the Cargill twins on, you know, how that they were like one soul in two bodies, right? And they wanted to honor their vows, and they died tragically in each other's arms, weeping, right? They slew each other. So it was just really difficult to see these two men who were obviously born in the womb so close together be pitted against each other because of this Targaryen family, right? The civil war. And it was literally a civil war between two brothers. And you know, I'm just glad I rewound and figured out who was who, but obviously Eric didn't want to live with the fact that he's killed his own brother, and so he just ended his life, and that's against his vows. He can't kill himself. He's sworn to protect the queen to the end. So yeah, just very tragic, and I will miss seeing them on the show. So RIP to them both.
Or 40 ounce for the Erics.
40 ounces, 80 ounces. One time for the Cargill twins.
The Cargill twins.
Yep.
I'll call them the Arcs. The Erics and the Arcs.
So yeah, that is the episode. A lot happening, and we lost, you know, two well-liked characters, right? Even though they were on opposite sides. So. And
then we lost a whole bunch of innocent rat catchers.
Oh yeah, that part. The small folk.
Oh, just the small folk. Yeah. And then we lost Cheese, which that's not really a loss. That's a gain. So
no, yeah. He killed the baby.
Yeah,
but the dog, the dog doesn't have an owner anymore, so we feel bad for the dog.
We lost blood, and that's also a gain. So just trying to think of the deaths of this episode. So and
blood, Cheese, and the twins.
I think the twins and the small folk.
Yeah, the small the poor rat catchers.
Poor rat catchers.
Uh-huh.
All right. So that wraps up our episode then. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you next week. Please feel free to do the things that you do when you're on YouTube. If you just happen to be on this video, you saw House of the Dragon come up on your YouTube feed, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that way you can get more of our videos as we pop them in each week. And don't forget to join us on Twitter and Threads, because we do live tweet and live thread these episodes each week during the broadcast of House of the Dragon. And we use the hashtag DragonsYall. So DragonsYall. So join us next week, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.